Hi, we're here in the Tandem Q&A hotspot at the 2015 Public Relations Institute of New Zealand conference in Wellington, and I have with me Dr. Tony Jaques, who's an issues and crisis management consultant based in Melbourne. Tony, lovely to have you back in your old hometown.
Great to be in my hometown, yes.
In the session that you've just chaired, which was around the role of the CEO in crises, I wonder if you could start by giving me a good example of a CEO fronting up and a bad example of a CEO.
Well, one of my favourite examples of a CEO fronting up was when BP had an oil spill off the coast of Southern California. It wasn't their fault, it was caused by a tanker running over its anchor and puncturing the hull. But the CEO flew to the scene, he stood on the beach with oil all around his ankles and said, "Our lawyers tell us it's not our fault, but we feel as if it's our fault and we're going to act as if it's our fault." And what happened was the cleanup was done extremely well, he was praised by everybody, and today nobody remembers it because it was done so well. Unfortunately, it's when things are done badly that people do remember, and of course the BP, same company of course, the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010 is a really good example of how things were done badly and how everyone will remember that, in my opinion, probably for a generation, as what not to do. When the CEO went there, firstly he said the amount of oil is tiny compared with the amount of water in the ocean, which was amazingly unsmart. And then of course he made his famous statement, "I wish I could get my life back," which the New York Times called the sound bite from hell, which I rather like. And even though he was the only spokesperson, which was a mistake, 24/7 for months, and was physically and mentally exhausted, he still shouldn't have said those things.
So in a major crisis like the examples that you've just given us, are there times when other people should be fronting up?
Absolutely. There's a difference, Bruce, between the CEO being seen and visible and the CEO being the only spokesperson. And those are different things, and people often get them mixed up. So the CEO can be seen to be there, can be seen to be supporting things, but not speaking all the time. So if it's an operational matter, you have the operational director speaking. If it's a technical matter, IT for example, you bring the IT expert up to speak. But when it's about expressing concern, when it's about addressing policy and company reputation, that's when the CEO does need to speak. But often CEOs start talking about technical stuff, get into trouble, don't exactly understand the details, and that's when it all goes wrong.
And finally, Tony, the role of crisis planning came up a few times. We were exhorted to make sure that we had really good crisis planning in our organisation.
We were exhorted to have crisis planning, and I do quite a lot of work in that area, and it's amazing to me how many companies say, "Yeah, we've got a plan," and I say, "Show me," and it's actually about some media statements. Because I think the important thing to remember is that crisis management is different from crisis response. Crisis response is the stuff you say when it all goes bad, but crisis management starts long before the crisis, taking action to prevent it happening, continues long after the crisis. And I like to encourage managers to say the crisis plan has got to be across all of that, before the crisis, during the crisis, and after, not just the stuff that happens when it all goes pear-shaped.
So great reminders for us as PR practitioners. Tony, thank you very much.
My pleasure.